and City Council consent items with questions and answers. The consent Elena. So our next item are
making life multiplanetary. Every time we're learning something from these flights that will get us there, that is progress.
Exactly. Starship is the first orbital launch vehicle engineered to be fully reusable and built for frequent light and heavy payloads, just like today's commercial airliners.
It's the product of years of rapid development, testing, iteration. We're trying to fly as frequently as possible, fix problems as they appear, and then fly again. It all started here at Starbase back with Starhopper. It was a small single Raptor prototype. Kind of looked like a water tower. We turned it into a water tower eventually. It made its first low-altitude hop back in 2019 here at Starbase. You could tell the pad, that's the pad that we were just looking at. It looks dramatically different now, 2 towers. But Starhopper delivered. It was able to prove that we could use that Raptor engine for controlled takeoff and landing.
And that is so wild to see that there on your screen was just 6 years ago, and now we're here today with a full-size vehicle. So from there, we moved to full-size test articles with increasingly complex test flights that reached possibly higher altitudes. And each test shaped the Starship that we see today on the pad, a stronger, taller, and more refined vehicle.
That's right. All right. Now, let's go out there and meet it. Starship is made up of 2 parts. First, on the bottom,
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm your host, Vanessa Rufus. We'll be together for the next couple of hours. Pretty busy evening, really, as we lay out kind of what to expect as we go on over the next couple of hours. We've got a SpaceX launch that we expect to go off around 7:30. This is a test run of the Starship mega rocket. Important to note, the last 2 launches both failed with explosions. This is not a crewed launch, but this will be the 9th test flight, so hopefully we'll be able to bring that to you in just a few minutes. But it was also a very busy day in the Charlotte area from a government perspective. Tonight was the first city council meeting since some of the saga around the CMPD police chief has come to kind of a bit of a head. And then there's also the federal indictment into Councilmember Tijuana Brown. This is her first council meeting since those revelations came to light. We also know that lots of folks showed up at the public comment section to speak their mind on various issues, including livable wages. There's the issue with Julio, the stolen French bulldog, which has a section of the community up in arms and concerned, speaking out about youth crime, and really just a lot to get to on that front and much more. So with that, we want to bring you to the Charlotte City Council meeting to start. And we will jump back in, of course, as anything big and breaking happens here on Live Impact News.
Items agenda is 14 through 26 and may be considered in one motion, except those items which would be removed by a council member for a separate vote. Do I have a motion for anything with a separate vote?
Motion to approve.
All right, Ms. Mayfield.
I would like to pull out 26 for discussion.
All right, 26 for discussion. Hearing Ms. Johnson.
Number 15, please.
15 for discussion.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much.
Was there a second?
There was no
There
second,
is no second.
and the motion was made prior to the removal of the two items. So the maker of the motion should accept those two
A
items.
change to, I think, Edwin, you made the motion?
I made the motion,
And
correct.
so we would like to make an adjustment for that, which means that we would have one for items 14 or as well as 15, as well as 26 done separately.
I will accept that.
All right, accepting. All
Second.
Second, we have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please, all in favor, please raise your hand. All right, thank you very much. And so now, we'll go back to item 14. 15, and I believe that was Ms. Mayfield, right?
Nope.
Johnson.
Ms. Johnson.
Ms. Johnson. And then 26 is Ms. Mayfield. Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
I just wanted to acknowledge the Prosperity Church Road improvements from Old Ridge Road to Benfield Road. And I just wanted to hear a little more about it from staff, if someone's available.
Sorry, you wanted to hear just an overview of the project?
Yes.
I believe Mr. Phil Rieger is here to provide that. Sorry, Ms. Kathleen.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Kathleen Cishek, City Engineer. So, Councilmember Johnson, to answer your question, we have a construction contract in the amount of $4.8 million to Blythe Development. The project includes curb and gutter, sidewalk, storm drainage, bike lanes, and a roundabout at Prosperity Church at Prosperity Ridge.
Okay. Thank you. Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, so we'll go next to item 26.
We got to vote on it.
I'm sorry, let's vote on this one. So all in favor of the motion by Ms. Johnson?
Yeah, get on my nerves.
Please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, I believe that proceeds. All right, the next item is item 26. And Ms. Mayfield, I believe you addressed
Right.
this.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, I reached out to Marie because I had a question, even though this is for the purchase of a single-family residential home, where we are seeing limited single-family residential homes. We have over 100,000 single-family homes that are now rentals in our city. My question was directly in regard to the soon-to-be single-family home that's basically next door to this property. Is that property currently occupied?
I'm sorry, is
Is
it?
the home next door currently occupied?
I believe so, yes, ma'am.
So the concern that I have is we don't have a plan. Council has never discussed a plan. Staff, meaning directly our airport staff, has not necessarily presented a plan, or we've had a discussion in regard to what are we doing to protect those few homeowners that are still in areas where we have grown tremendously with the airport. And it feels like it creates a challenge when we say aging in place, staying in place is our priority, yet our policy language is creating an environment that potentially would not create a quality of life for the long-standing single-family home that is in this area. I believe Ms. Gentry and I did have a conversation earlier, and she shared that we have the opportunity to purchase a lot more homes in the area around the airport. Yet at some point, I would like for this council to have a discussion of what is our plan to ensure quality of life for the residents who are staying there. This particular property, there's a agreed upon a price of $342,000. This particular property was a rental, fine, but for those individuals that are still living in their homes, and when the cost of housing today, when you have a home that's paid for, or potentially 80 to 95% paid for, and housing is $500,000 plus in the city of Charlotte, what is our actual plan to protect the few owner-occupied homeowners that we have left in our city? And that is for you, Mr. Manager. Now, somebody can motion to approve it, because I'm not.
Do we have a motion to approve the item for 26? We have a motion, and is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? Ms. Mayfield is opposed. Thank you very much. We'll move forward on that one. So, the next item that we have is for our public forum. And I just want to say this, that on behalf of the entire City Council, we ask that all speakers and audience members be civil and courteous in their use of language. Speakers are encouraged to address the council and should refrain from responding to other audience members. Likewise, audience members should be courteous as well to those that speak. And we certainly do not like to have we'd like to have the opportunity to not have interruptions so that everyone can be heard. So with that, I will go to our speakers list for today. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak with us because we have over 15 people that have signed up to speak. And I will be calling those names as well. Please come down. We have a lot of cameras up here, guys. So we'll try to get 2 speakers, one at each side of the dais, and be able to hear from them. So the first speaker is Kimberly Wade. Ms. Wade, and the second speaker is Levi Ramash. Nice. Please, and it's very helpful if you give us your name before you begin to speak. It really does help us know who you are. All right, please.
I'm Kimberly Wade.
I'm sorry.
I'm Kimberly Wade.
Okay, please.
Good evening. My name is Kim. I've lived in Charlotte for 18 years and reside in District 7. I've attended nearly every city council meeting over the past 2 years, only missing 2. And I speak tonight as a longtime resident, a volunteer, and a foster with Charlotte Animal Care and Control. First, thank you. I want to sincerely thank you for proposing funding for the shelter expansion and adoption center, and for the decision to move Animal Care and Control under General Services. These steps show that council values compassion, not only for animals, but for the people who love and care for them. Every day I witness just how much animals mean to the people in this city. Right now, I'm working with an unhoused woman here in East Charlotte who owns nearly 50 cats. She doesn't have a permanent roof over her head, but she makes sure those animals are fed, safe, and loved. She chooses to feed them before she feeds herself. She could have walked away, but she didn't, because they're her family. This isn't just her story, it's Charlotte's story. The story of people doing everything they can for the ones who depend on them. It's proof that the bond between people and animals is unshakable. And it's exactly why we need a system that can meet the needs of both. Because when we support animals, we also are standing by the people who love them the most. That's why I'm concerned that the additional staff positions Animal Care and Control requested weren't included in the proposed budget. Intake is rising, and the shelter expansion is still years away. way. These staff are urgently needed to keep saving lives. And while I know the organizational structure isn't under council's direct control, I do hope ACC Director will report to the General Services Director. Reducing bureaucracy means faster decisions and better outcomes for everyone involved. Thank you for showing that compassion is something Charlotte chooses to act on. I'm grateful for your leadership and for your continued commitment to our city's most vulnerable.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to check to see if Levi Ramah is in the chamber. All right, we'll go next to our next two speakers, Julie Kelly and Ricky Shing. You give us your name.
Julie Kelly.
Thank you. You have 2 minutes.
Hi, I'm Julie. I'm here because of the American Lung Association's turquoise takeover. In 2022, I was diagnosed with lung cancer at 42 years old. I have 3 children who were 9, 11, and 13 at the time. I had no risk factors and no symptoms. It was caught by accident when my doctor ran a calcium score heart scan. In September of that year, I had half of my left lung removed and was then placed on targeted therapy. Lung cancer kills more people than breast cancer, prostate cancer, and colon cancer combined. We receive less than 10% of funding. My story is not rare. 20% of lung cancer patients have never smoked. Another 40% have already quit a substance known to be as addictive as heroin. All of us are fighting a disease society tells us we deserve. There are many risk factors for lung cancer. The main one is having lungs. I went to DC and begged the staff of Congressman Bud Tillis and more to believe that cancer research is the best spending our nation can ever spend. However, they knowingly approved a budget that cut lung cancer research from the small amount we had to 0. Veterans are at a higher risk of developing lung cancer. Never smoking women are twice as likely as men to get lung cancer. We are the canaries in the coal mine, and we won't know why without research. And we'll likely see more of it without regulation to protect the general population over corporations. 3 things to remember. If you're over 50 with a smoking history, go to savebythescan.org to see if you are eligible for screening. If, like many lung cancer patients, you are not eligible, ask about a calcium score scan like the one that I had. It saved my life. More awareness and funding will lead to more screening options. Other organizations to support are GoTo for Lung Cancer, Longevity and Lung Cancer Initiative, among others.
Thank you very much for that information and appreciate. Okay, our next 2 speakers are Dominique Chambers and Danielle Profete.
Ricky?
Stephen and Autumn
I
Will.
called his name and he did not come down.
Stephen,
They're not here.
Stephen Will and Autumn Will are not here.
You're not here. Sorry.
Your personal care, man.
I think Dominique goes first.
All right, she wants you to go first, so if you give us your name.
Dominique Chambers.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Dominique Chambers, and I'm a wheelchair agent at Charlotte Douglas International Airport. It's my job to help American airline passengers who are elderly or disabled move through the airport with comfort and dignity. I help them get something to eat, guide them to the restroom, and love being the person they feel comfortable telling their life stories to. I love my job, and I feel like it's where I'm supposed to be. But most passengers have no idea about the struggles we face every day to get them to their destination. Every day, we are met with low wages, minimal benefits, and poor working conditions. The turnover rate is so high, and we are so understaffed that many passengers are left waiting. Sometimes we're even pressured to push 2 passengers at the same time. This is stressful, dangerous, and unfair to workers and our passengers. Some of my coworkers are living in their cars, staying with family, staying in hotels, or even homeless because the pay is extremely low and we just can't keep up with the cost of living in Charlotte. I live with my grandmother and would love to live on my own, but that's not the possibility when you're only making $12.50 an hour. Here are hundreds of postcards from airport workers who are concerned about security and short staffing at the airport. Read them. We are calling on you to step up and do something. The City Council must act now to make the airport a safe place to travel and work. Show us you care about us safety at the airport and the working people.
All right, folks, we will continue to keep you updated on the Charlotte City Council meeting from just moments ago. You just heard an airport worker speaking on the case ordinance, which our Julie Kay has done extensive reporting upon. You can find more information at WCNC.com and inside our WCNC Charlotte mobile app, but essentially they're calling for minimum wage requirements, sick leave, stronger training. We're going to come back to the City Council meeting. Keep in mind we have a couple other big topics to talk about. We want to turn now to the Starship flight test, which is set to go off in just a few moments. Looks like we're T-minus 12 minutes, 42 seconds. And we do have a host here, so let's listen in to see how the expectations are shaping up for this launch tonight.
If it isn't a smooth descent for the booster down to its splashdown point today. The most important objective of this portion of the test will be getting actual flight data to help anchor our models. Now, we're hoping to fly the next generation of Super Heavy boosters at even higher angles of attack, so this test today will give us a better idea of what is feasible. Now, on top of all of this, we're going to see how resilient Super Heavy is to engine failures at the most critical times.
Yeah, we're going to intentionally disable one of those 3 center engines and instead use an engine from the middle ring that's kind of right behind it. Those center engines are what we nominally use at the very last part of a landing burn as you're just kind of fine-tuning the booster's path into those waiting chopstick arms. This is going to act as a real-world simulation of a pretty scary situation where engines are not starting at probably the worst possible time, but we're going to do this without risking the pad. And then, at the very end of the landing burn, we're going to cut one more engine off and go down to only those 2 center engines. The burn is going to end while Super Heavy is still several hundred feet above the Gulf, so we expect it to make a pretty hard splashdown today. So, in all, pretty eventful day for the booster.
And as many of you may know, water landings are actually uncommon for SpaceX. While other launch providers expend all of their boosters after flight, we land and reuse most of ours. All of these tests are going to help us improve future generations of Super Heavy until we reach its fundamental design, a fully and rapidly reusable and reliable rocket. All right, let's check back in with Chris in Hawthorne. How's it going, Chris?
Hey, Jesse, my colleagues here in Hawthorne definitely agree with you. We can't wait to see the Super Heavy perform its second flight and see all of the work from our thousands of engineers and technicians in action today. Now, while this reuse milestone is incredibly important for Starship's development, Super Heavy boosters are not the only vehicles that we reuse here at SpaceX. We're big on reuse, and our Dragon fleet is another example of that reuse. And we actually control those Dragon missions from right here in Hawthorne in the mission control room that we talked about a little bit earlier. For Dragon and our human spaceflight program, this month also marks a big milestone for SpaceX, our 5-year anniversary of human spaceflight. Now, NASA astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley got us started back on Demo 2, which was notable for being the first time since the retirement of the shuttle program in 2011 that people launched to orbit from U.S. soil. Now, in those 5 years, we have launched 17 human spaceflight missions, 11 for NASA, and 6 commercial missions, including Polaris Dawn, with our first commercial spacewalk in history, and From 2 earlier this year, which became the first human spaceflight mission ever to explore Earth's polar regions. We've flown a total of 66 crew in those 5 years, and we are expecting that number to grow significantly in the coming years. Now, most recently on our From 2 mission, the crew offered unique glimpses into the orbital spaceflight experience. And this was honestly just so cool to see. Thank you to our Starlink teams for making everything From 2 crew shared possible. This honestly made me feel like I was right there with them in Dragon. They were living, they were working, they were relaxing, they were doing their experiments while also having fun. Basically, just being people and inviting us along for the ride. And that was really meaningful. Being invited up there really showed how these are just the early days on the road to making life multiplanetary. And the vehicle that's going to make all of that happen is Starship. And Dan and Jesse, I don't know about you, but that is definitely a future I have wanted since I was a little kid, and I cannot wait to see us make it a reality.
Yeah, right there with you, Chris. It's the fact that we're getting close to that being reality, that the vehicle that's going to go is sitting on the pad right there. Like, that's endlessly exciting. All of that's going to include sending humans, all of the infrastructure for a permanent presence on Mars, and we're looking ahead to sending the very first Starships to Mars as early as next year.
Yeah, this will help prove that we can actually get to Mars with a focus on learning as much as possible while demonstrating what will be needed for Mars transit and landing. But before we can make life multiplanetary, we have to build the starships that will make this all possible.
That's right, and that's happening right here, Starbase, Texas, the gateway to Mars. This is where we're soon going to be launching up to 25 Starship launches per year from here at Starbase. And the place is changing every single day. We've grown quite a bit just in the last couple of years. There's a couple hundred employees, their families living amongst actual rockets. We're in the process of expanding production and integration. We've got a target of 1,000 Starships a year we're going to try to hit. And recently, we did become a city of our own. We're the first city in Cameron County in 30 years. And that's just going to help us scale more quickly, try to build out the best community possible for all the people that are building the future of humanity's place in space. Starbase, pretty easily one of the most inspiring, exciting, unique places to live and work on the planet. As usual, shameless plug, we're always hiring. Come help us build the gateway to Mars. Visit spacex.com/careers. You can see all of our openings.
And this is my first time in Starbase, and Dan, the Star Factory is a manufacturing engineer's dream. To be able to build a factory like this at such a large scale with such a large scale vehicle is so wild to me. And though I'm just visiting, Chris is hanging out right where I call home base. So let's check back in with Chris in Hawthorne.
Thanks, Jesse. Yeah, everything here in Hawthorne is looking good. The crowd is gathered, really excited to watch the hard work of all of their colleagues come to fruition here for Starship on its 9th flight test. Not tracking any issues. We are excited to watch Starship do its thing today, make it halfway around the world, and test a lot of those critical in-space maneuvers and operations that will be vital for the program's continued operation. So, Dan and Jesse, we can't wait for liftoff. Let's have a good flight today.
Thanks, Chris. Now, if you're just now joining us, where have you been? But we're glad that you're joining us now. We are at T-minus just under 6 minutes until liftoff of the 9th Starship test flight. So far, the range is looking good. All the airspace and trajectory area that we are going to be launching through is looking good for our test flight today. Weather has been great. It was a little rainy and windy this morning, but it cleared up. It looks beautiful here in Starbase, and propellant loading continues on both stages.
All right, yeah, it is continuing. We're a little over 90% full on our booster. We are pretty much full in the main tanks on ship, filling up those header tanks. We're going to continue loading prop for about 2 more minutes. Once we're done with that, you've got just under 11 million pounds of liquid propellant spread across those 2 stages. After we get through all of that prop load, our stage 0 will get ready. The ground systems will go through pushbacks, clearing all of those fluid feed lines back to the propellant farm, getting ready for launch. We did just see they did a flap wiggle check, so the final flap check on the ship. We're doing final alignments of the guidance, navigation, and control system, our thrust vector control, essentially our steering, checkouts of the flight safety system. So everything progressing right now. If we do need to hold that can come at T-minus 40 seconds. That's a point built into the countdown where we can pause to wait for any final checkouts, pressurizations, anything that we need to complete. We can hold there. We will only hold there if we're tracking an issue. We're not currently tracking anything that will hold us at T-minus 40 seconds, but if you've seen a Starship launch before, they can happen, we can push through them, and then launch that day still.
Exactly, but when we do pass through T-minus 40 seconds, a number of events will occur in rapid succession. The ground spin and ignition systems come up to flight pressure, ship goes to internal power, and then after that, the quick disconnect or QD, arm lockout is removed in preparation for retraction just shortly after T-minus 0. And once we pass T-minus 40 seconds, we do still have the ability to recycle the count under certain conditions back to T-minus 40 seconds, and then hold there to assess what happened and see if we can proceed again back down to T0.
Yeah, there are a couple of things, kind of gates in that timeline that if we pass through that and we hit a hold, we'd have to scrub for the day. One pretty visual one will be if the water starts flowing for that deflector system that's underneath the launch mount. That happens right at around T-minus 10 seconds. For flowing water, we can't turn it off after it starts, and if we hit a hold, we're scrubbed for the day. We would need to refill those water tanks. We would also at that point need to refill all of the propellant tanks, as 11 million pounds of propellant is a whole lot. We can typically do that in about 24 hours, so we can always turn around to try again tomorrow. But we are coming up on 3 minutes away from liftoff. We should be hearing that we're closed out of prop load on the ship at this point. Booster coming up shortly.
And wow, the weather just looks amazing there with Starship on the launch pad. Just about 2 minutes and 45 seconds from T0 with a lot of objectives for today. The booster, the Super Heavy booster flying today, will be flying for its second time. Last flight was on Flight 7 and just turned around in 2 flights, which is pretty incredible. I'm super excited to see that booster fly again.
All right, we did just hear we are going to hold at T-minus 40 seconds. So we'll pass along some more information once we hear that reason. But again, that's not the end of the day. We can hold at T-minus 40 seconds for quite a few minutes. We eventually have to start looking at our temperature of all of our propellant on board. That's usually what drives us to, if we've held too long, we have to stand down for the day. So we are expecting a hold at T-minus 40 seconds. Sounds like we're going to be doing some additional checkouts on the booster Raptor while we're at that T-minus 40 second mark. We will expect to see the clock pause at T-minus 40. And then again, we've got a couple of minutes. They can work through the issues. If we're able to clear them, we can still launch today. If it's something that we can't, we can always stand down, turn around, recycle, fly again tomorrow.
Again, that's really important. This is what terminal count is exactly for, is to be checking the vehicle, monitoring the vehicle systems as it makes its way down to T0. And again, this gives us the ability to catch anything and be able to hold, as Dan has been saying, and recycle if we need to, or pause so that we can work through those issues and see if it's something that we need to stand down for. And as Dan mentioned, we will be holding at T-minus 40 seconds, so in about 20 seconds from now.
Yeah, so we'll hold there, and they'll work through these final checkouts on, sounds like just one of those Raptors on the first stage on Super Heavy, which, as you said, we're reflying it for the first time. 29 of those 33 engines have already been used in a launch, one of which has already launched
twice, and will go for
and
its
is getting ready for its
third
time.
time.
And you just heard our flight director for the day, Joe Sliker. He just shared that we are going to hold at this T-minus 40 second mark, keeping an eye on one of those Raptor engines on booster. And if you're just now jumping in, we are holding still at T-minus 40 seconds, watching one engine, waiting for temperatures to kind of get to a zone that we want them to on one of the engines on the booster, on the Super Heavy booster, getting ready for its second ever flight. So we'll just continue to hold. Again, we can hang out here for several minutes. We held for a while on the first attempt last time and then cleared it, and then we triggered a different issue on the ground side.
But again, this is exactly what it's for. This gives us the best chances at success.
And the clock is rolling.
There we go.
All right. T-minus 30. Let's listen in. Watch that first flight proven super heavy. Get ready to take off from Starbase.
T-minus. Delta 1. Head hold.
We did have a hold, and looks like the clock jumped back to T-minus 40 seconds.
All right, so yep, we jumped out. I did not see the deflector go off. So hopefully we were right at around that T-minus 10 second mark.
And if we were before that T-minus 10 second mark, we do have the ability to recycle, as we mentioned earlier, back to T-minus 40 seconds.
So it looked like this time it was a ground side issue. We're taking a look at this real quick. So again, we're back at T-minus 40. We're gonna hold for a little bit. We are still not scrubbed for the day. Give them a couple of minutes to work through this. Again, we can hang out at T-minus 40 for several minutes. Eventually, we start looking at your bulk temperatures and all of your propellant on board the vehicle. We're not actively replenishing the propellant on board Super Heavy and Starship, and so you don't have essentially forever to hang out before things start to warm up. And you do want to make sure your temperature's in a really stable range for a healthy startup on Raptor engines. So they're going to work through this issue. We can continue to hold here for a couple of minutes. What's launch without a little extra added excitement? All right, so cumulatively, we've held for a little over 3 minutes between the two holds. Again, this is a ground side issue on our tower. The techs are looking through the data right now to see if it's something that we can either work through or if it would cause us to have to stand down. So we're continuing to hang out with them, holding at T-minus 40.
And if you're just joining us, we did initially hold at T-minus 40 seconds. We continued the count, but recycled before we got to T-minus 10 seconds. And so we're back at a hold at T-minus 40 seconds, waiting for more information. The team is checking out to see if we can continue today. And we're continuing to hold here at T-minus 40 seconds. We've been holding for just about 5 minutes now as the teams evaluate if we can continue to T0 for Flight 9.
All right, so it sounds like we're coming to a resolution. All right, so we are We are getting to a resolution. We're going to reset everything. All right, so we're going to see the clock. It is now rolling.
Here we go.
We saw an issue with that quick disconnect to the ship. There is a chance that automation will kick us out again if we encounter the same issue. But for now, the clock is rolling. We'll see if we pass around that T-minus 10-second mark. T-plus 40 seconds, it's one hell of a sight from here. We see it arcing right over top of us. We see 33 out of 33 Raptor engines lit on Super Heavy as it starts to ascend skyward. Coming up on maximum aerodynamic pressure, then only about a minute and a half until we get into hot staging.
Wow, Dan, that was incredible. We could feel the building shaking here, feel the vehicle's power. Now we're just about a minute away from shutting down those engines on the booster. Again, this booster is flying for its second time today.
All right, so hot staging coming up a little under a minute. We're going to see all but the 3 center engines turn off on the booster. So our version of MECO, most engines cut off. And then just a few seconds later, hoping to see 6 engines ignite on ship to push it away. All right, hot staging, about 30 seconds. And definitely keep an eye on which way the booster flips. First ever directional flip we're going for today should flip straight up. See those engines powering down?
Booster engine cutoff. Ship ignition. Stage separation.
Incredible flip by Super Heavy booster, and you can see those 6 engines, those 3 engines on the ship ignited.
6 healthy Raptors running on ship, on its way to space. Peek that engine view, booster doing the boost back. Chris, how's it looking over there in Hawthorne, man?
It is looking
chamber pressure is nominal.
It is looking absolutely incredible here in Hawthorne. As we said, 6 healthy engines on ship. We've got 13 out of 13 engines on the booster. Now down to those 3, which is what we expect in the final moments of the boost back burn. Now, as a reminder, we are not recovering the Super Heavy booster today. We are instead going to do some
shutdown.
And there we had a good shutdown of the boost back burn. Next up will be the jettison of that hot stage ring.
Avionics power and telemetry nominal.
great call out there that everything looking nominal aboard the Super Heavy vehicle, which is returning to Earth, and we're going to be doing some experiments with it, including a higher angle of attack re-entry, as well as some engine tests as it gets closer to the Gulf. We are, again, because of these tests not recovering it, we are sending it to the Gulf on purpose to do those tests. But again, you see the booster on the left-hand side of your screen. You see ship with 6 healthy engines continuing its ascent to its planned suborbital trajectory. Everything going very well so far for Starship's 9th flight. Now 4 minutes, 15 seconds in. Great views from inside of the aft engine area of ship there, looking at those 3 sea level and 3 Raptor engines on the right-hand side of your screen. The booster doing its LOX dump, that liquid oxygen dump. So because we don't need some of that liquid oxygen propellant in its tanks, we vent that propellant out to lessen the booster's mass as it comes in for its landing. Just absolutely gorgeous views watching these two vehicles do their respective things in the skies over Texas here today. And Dan, we're approaching the 5-minute mark into the flight. Super Heavy is descending rapidly. What can we expect here in the next few minutes as it does its atmospheric tests?
Yeah, now as we had talked about, Super Heavy might not have a very smooth ride down. We're going to be putting it through this higher angle of attack. So we're kind of pitching it up a tiny bit, increasing drag. We've done this in wind tunnels. We've done this in computer modeling. It shows that sometimes the control isn't great, but only one way to really prove it out, and that's to get real-world data. So here comes Super Heavy. It should be igniting for its landing burn in just about 40 seconds from now.
And we are going to relight 13 engines, then bring that down to 3 engines. As we talked about earlier, we will be intentionally shutting down. We will be shutting down one of those 3 center engines intentionally to push the limits of the Super Heavy booster.
Raptor chamber pressure is nominal.
And continuing to see 6 healthy engines on the ship. 3 sea level and 3 vacuum engines still ignited as the Super Heavy booster is making its way back down to Earth.
You can see those grid fins doing some heavy work.
Booster landing startup.
Ignited for our landing burn. It may have ended with that landing burn. Does look like we lost telemetry from the booster once we started into that landing burn. Did you hear confirmation that the booster did demise? So the booster's flight ending before it was able to get through landing burn, but again, we are not bringing that back. We're expecting it to make a hard splashdown in the Gulf. We were getting live data back the entire time through that high angle of attack flight, so that was something that was really vital for us to get during this reuse. First free flight of booster in the books. All right, ship has about 2 minutes left.
In about 2 minutes, we expect all 6 Raptor engines to shut down. That will be SECO. Basically second engine or second stage engine shut off. And these are some incredible views, Dan, from the aft end of the ship, watching as the engines stay ignited with the Earth in the background.
As always, the Starship avionics team, the techs. I think we just heard the booster, but all right, we got about a minute left into this burn. All eyes definitely on ship as we get through the final stages into its ascent. We're expecting it to start to cut those engines off in about 45 seconds.
Terminal guidance.
All right, just about 30 seconds to go. We're in terminal guidance in the final stages of this ascent burn. We did see shutdown of the Raptor engines. We do stagger these, so we do the Raptors first. Those 3 have shut down successfully. Sea levels still running.
Ship engine cutoff.
Ship engine cutoff, the 3 most beautiful words in the English language.
And great call out that we had nominal insertion. An incredible flight test so far today. We reflew a super heavy booster for the very first time in 9 test flights. Ship is in its orbital trajectory. Again, it's going to remain suborbital for its mission today. But it ignited It ignited all 6 of its engines and made it all the way through SECO just now.
What a moment. Huh.
Incredible.
All right,
And
I mean, that's still lots to come for the rest of this flight. Per usual, I need to collect myself. Hey, Chris, how's it going over there in Hawthorne, man? How's everybody doing?
I think the elation and the excitement and the happiness at what we just saw achieved carried through across all of our sites. What an incredible view to see Starship back orbiting the Earth just under 11 minutes into our mission. Absolutely exciting to see all of this, and super pumped especially to see all of the team's hard work in action here today. As guaranteed, it has been an exciting evening so far for Starship's 9th test flight. We lifted off a little bit after 6:30 p.m. after a couple of holds that were triggered at the T-minus 40-second mark, but we were able to clear those, 1 on the Raptor, 1 on the tower, and we were able to lift off successfully from Starbase. 33 out of 33 Raptor engines lit on the Super Heavy, all 6 engines lit on Ship, bringing it to its planned suborbital trajectory around Earth. But as Dan said, we've got a lot still coming up in our flight sequence. So coming up at about T plus 18 minutes, 26 seconds, we'll have the first deployment of simulated Starlink satellites planned from Starship. That will be followed at about T plus 37 minutes and 49 seconds by the relight of a single Raptor sea level engine in space. This is going to help us gather data on our ability to do a deorbit burn for future Starship missions that will go orbital. And then, of course, one of the biggest tests yet to come is the new heat shield modifications to Starship, and that'll start with reentry into
All right, folks watching here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, you just saw a successful launch thus far of SpaceX's Starship mega rocket. Of course, we preface this live feed for you by noting that the last 2 launches, these tests, did not go well. Essentially, we saw the crafts exploding, so lots of eyes were on this particular launch to see how things were going. It's an uncrewed launch, as we shared before. This is the 9th test flight. And as you heard some of the hosts there with SpaceX talking about, we weren't quite sure if things were going to go off all right. There were some delays, there were some holds, but as you saw, things going pretty well thus far. And keep in mind, larger picture, we know that Elon Musk plans to use this type of rocket, this specific rocket, for future missions to Mars. And there will be obviously many more tests to come before that would happen. He had talked about hundreds of tests. And we actually did see Mr. Musk there during one of the cutaways of this live feed. Of note, he had talked about wanting to step away from the prominent role that he has in the Trump administration with the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, and he wants to focus again, he says, now on SpaceX, Tesla, and other businesses. So we did see him there present for this launch. With that, we want to turn here on Live Impact News to this Charlotte City Council meeting. Of course, we brought you some public commentary before we turned it over to SpaceX, but we're going to go back in. As we talked about, lots of topics discussed. We heard the airport workers speak about their push for better pay and working conditions. They hope that would be accomplished through a city ordinance. Now we have more folks speaking, and we're also going to hear about Julio the Stolen Bulldog. That is really drawing the ire of lots of folks in the community. Let's listen in here.
Our next speakers are Jeff Risberg and Chris Barnett.
All right. My name is Jeff Riesberg. I'm a union flight attendant, member of the Association of Professional Flight Attendants, and a Charlotte resident. Did you know that federal minimum wage was first set at 25 cents per hour? It was never generous. FDR wanted 40 cents an hour, but agreed on 25 cents to satisfy anyone? Anyone? Southern lawmakers? At the Charlotte Douglas Airport, you've got workers cleaning cabins and pushing wheelchairs, often 2 at a time, essential jobs, performed for wages that don't even cover basic needs. This isn't enlightened economics, it's a historical reenactment. It's like saying you're all saying, if poverty was good enough for your grandparents, it's good enough for you. I recently helped a cleaner get her car out of the impound after I found out that their vehicle wasn't simply their transportation, it was their home. Why was it impounded? I didn't ask. They're humiliated enough to ask for help. But anyone who's been part of the working poor before can probably guess when you are barely scraping by, things like renewing registration is a luxury. Sure, they can beg federal representatives to represent, but both parties have said no to raising the federal minimum wage for longer than any stretch since the Fair Labor Standards Act started it in 1938. I know the legality of case ordinance might be contested, but the least you could do is hold a committee hearing and let the lawyers sort it out. We've heard from one worker at the last meeting who was evicted from their storage unit. If you don't even pretend to care enough about these workers to hold a hearing, what options are left for these workers to remedy their suffering? I'd recommend partnering with civic groups to ensure that the people that are against this are never reelected. Who here believes that workers at the airport deserve a living wage? Yeah. Charlotte City Council, who do you represent?
Thank you. Mr. Barnett?
Good evening. My name is Chris Barrett.
Impact News on WCNC Plus. Moving to our 3-box now. We'll keep you listening full here to the City Council meeting, but wanted to share a couple of extra boxes that we put for you, including the ongoing Starship flight test in the top right. And then the bottom right, we've got some new images coming into our Live Impact News studio of protests ongoing in Seattle. It sounds like there are protests and counter-protests that have sparked from earlier protests that turned violent. And so we can see folks marching and sharing signs in the downtown Seattle area, police closing the streets, they're redirecting traffic around here. And this is a situation that's being watched pretty closely, because it sounds like we mentioned there was a Christian group rally at Cal Anderson Park Saturday, which turned violent. So we'll continue to watch this, and once again, we're listening in full to Charlotte City Council's public forum.
Our next speakers are Sylvia Stitt-Smith and Bobby Kirkpatrick.
Sylvia Stitt-Smith.
All right, why don't you start us off and give us your name?
My name is Sylvia Stitt-Smith.
Good afternoon to you, Mayor Lyles, to the Charlotte City Council, and to all of our citizens and visitors. I am honored to stand before you. I lost my youngest son, Samuel Harrison Stitt, to gun violence in August of 2019. Sam was 23 years old. Like so many other families, I am personally invested in knowing that our community's leaders in both government and business see the impact of these tragic losses as more than just singular events, but also as a catalyst to champion the work needed to create sustainable, lasting change. June is Gun Violence Awareness Month. Tonight, we humbly, though passionately, seek your support to illuminate the Charlotte skyline orange in June as part of the national recognition. Our ask is that Charlotte City Council become involved in the process as a body or from your individual seats of influence. Your endorsement to light the night would send a clear message to Charlotte's Center City that this recognition is significant and meaningful to the council and the citizens by whom you are elected to serve. And it sets an expectation to illuminate the Charlotte skyline in orange every first Friday. Multiple community-based organizations, members of the faith community, business owners, and citizens who wish to also see our Center City make this simple but significant act. By lighting the night, we honor the lives impacted by gun violence tragedies. We acknowledge the issues that foster harm, and we also empower the work being done, work that creates wholeness in our communities, leading to safer futures and saved lives.
Thank you very much for that reminder. Bobby Kirkpatrick, I want to recognize you. Then we'll go to the next part of our list. William Volz. Okay. Michael Sims.
Street vending.
I have a petition here I'd like to provide to the clerk.
Yes, we can get that. You can give it to us after you make your remarks.
Got
That would
it.
be very helpful. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michael Sims. I am CEO and owner of Crown Town Cannabis Charlotte. I'm a Charlotte native, been here my entire life. I've loved this city. I've watched it grow. I've watched it go through all the perils of growth. And I'm here today to represent the business owners of North Davison. We have a growing epidemic of a problem with street vendors in our neighborhood. We support and love local business and small business growth, although it's gone from being a nuisance to a public emergency for public safety. We have seen more and more vendors show up. It is not allowing customers to be able to safely go down the sidewalks without getting into the streets. Those with baby strollers, those in wheelchairs have to literally go in the streets to make it up and down the road. Not to mention, it's turning business away from our establishment. But there are some vendors that have actually, there's been violence around it. It has escalated to gun violence, to physical violence, and ultimately is causing a nuisance in the neighborhood where the business owners and neighborhood is scared to be out in the streets. It's making it challenging to get in and out of business. It's a fire safety hazard. It's a safety hazard in general. There's little to no laws around this, and if there is, there's no follow-up or teeth to this. So I'd like a policy to be put in place and have it where we can enforce these rules and not just a faceless law or rule. It has become a huge nuisance, and it's only growing outside of the neighborhood, and it's making it very hard to be a business owner in that area. And it's very much so a public safety concern.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Paul McBroom, followed by Jayla Jittens. Oh, I'm sorry, Jennifer. I missed. Okay.
Folks, we're going to take a quick pivot to this live report in Seattle where protests are underway in the downtown area. Let's listen in to this reporter.
Looks like they're arresting somebody right now. We're just outside of the barrier where this happened. Seattle police moved in just a few minutes ago. Again, this rally was planned by a church group local here. Again, there's just a mass of people here as Seattle police are moving in right here. It looks like they're arresting someone on the ground. Joyce, as you mentioned, one person had already been arrested, but it looks like we're witnessing another arrest. There are hundreds of counter-protesters here who are here in opposition to the event that we're watching. And again, as you can just see, the crowd is massive here. Seattle police using their bikes to kind of keep the crowd back from where we are. Again, we're outside of that perimeter. Police have blocked off the area in front of 4th Street. That's right in front of Seattle City Hall. We're seeing, it looks like 2 people on the ground here being detained. And Joyce, again, we're seeing a couple things happening right now outside. Things are intense. We're hearing folks just yelling, and again, the situation here has definitely turned. It started off pretty peaceful, but again, we're just seeing how this has escalated, and we're going to continue to keep on this, Joyce, but for now, I'll send it back to you, but we'll check back in with you here in just a few minutes.
All right, live impact news on WCNC Plus. We'll continue to keep an eye on this turbulence we're seeing in downtown Seattle. We've got some protests that are underway, as you can see, and as that reporter just alluded to, some arrests that have been made. From what we understand, this stems from a demonstration that happened over the weekend that turned violent. There was a Christian group that was protesting in Cal Anderson Park Saturday. There were apparently 24 counter-protesters that showed up and stormed that Christian group's rally. Those folks were arrested for assault and obstruction, but ever since then, seemingly the emotions running high here, and so protests continuing in that downtown Seattle area. Once again, we will keep an eye on this here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. We'll get back to this if we see any big developments or we see a reporter jumping in front of the camera again to give us any updates. Meantime, we'll send you back to our 3-box here. That will remain in the bottom right corner of your screen. We still have the live feed from the Starship flight test. We saw that go off with much success as far as we could see from the SpaceX headquarters, and then of course listening in full to Charlotte City Council, where we saw multiple speakers weighing in on various topics, including livable wages, youth crime, and the stolen dog case, Julio the French Bulldog, which we've weighed in with multiple reports on over the recent weeks. Let's listen in now.
As well as the integration of animal care and control into general services. These are important steps forward, and we deeply appreciate your leadership on these initiatives. That said, I'd like to raise a few concerns. Animal Care and Control requested additional staffing, support that is urgently needed given the record high animal intake numbers. With the new shelter expansion still years away, our current staff is stretched thin, and the absence of these additional positions could significantly impact both animal welfare and public safety. We're also hopeful that when the transition of general services is finalized, the Animal Care and Control Director will report directly to the General Services Director. While I understand the Council doesn't weigh in on internal organizational structure, streamlining leadership could help reduce bureaucracy and enable quicker, more effective, life-saving work. Thank you again for your time, your attention, and your continued support of Charlotte's animals. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speakers are Jayla Gittens and Amanda O'Hara.
Hello, good evening. My name is Jayla Gittens. I'm a Charlotte resident of over 10 years. and I'm coming to talk to you today about a crime that has left me heartbroken and frustrated with a system that seems to protect perpetrators more than the people they hurt. On April 6th, my car was stolen along with my 6-year-old dog, Julio, while I was moving out of my apartment. If you're an animal lover, I'm sure you understand just how much my dog means to me. They truly are a member of the family. 5 days after the initial crime, my car was found damaged with my items missing, and my dog Julio has not been seen since. The heartbreak of losing him is something that I really do carry every day. But what has made the situation even worse is what I've observed about our juvenile justice system. Since the theft, I've received messages and calls from the juveniles responsible, as well as their adult family members, threatening me, taunting me, even trying to extort me for my dog. This isn't just a petty crime. This is cruel, deliberate, and calculated behavior. And yet, most of the kids involved were sent home with no real consequences from parents or the law and no accountability. I was disappointed to find out how few rights victims have when minors are involved. I couldn't get a police report to prove to my job why I missed work. I wasn't allowed to know the names of the juveniles or even their parents in the situation. I felt like I was left in the dark while the kids who stole from me and threatened me went back to school like nothing ever happened. Some of these kids are repeat offenders, and these crimes aren't isolated incidents. These are patterns that the system is allowing to continue. If there are no consequences, why wouldn't they keep doing it? That's the reality we're living in, a juvenile justice system that sends kids back into the same environments with no accountability for them or their guardians. A system that teaches young offenders that they can steal, lie, and threaten without any real repercussions. I'm here tonight because that has to change. We need stronger protections for victims. We need real consequences for juvenile offenders, especially repeat offenders.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Ms. Gittens. You see this young man walking down that way? His name is Sean Heath.
Sean.
And if you would have an opportunity to talk with him a little bit more about this would be very helpful. Thank you very much. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Amanda O'Hara. Nearly 2 months. That is how long Jayla has been living this nightmare and how long Julio has been missing since he was stolen in a brazen crime by a juvenile in our city. The crimes committed should not go unchecked. We are not talking about just a stolen car. We are talking about a stolen dog, stolen car, and extortion. Today it's a dog. Tomorrow it could be a kid. We are here tonight for answers, accountability, and justice. Reports show that just last year, 61% of juveniles arrested in Charlotte were repeat offenders. Many cases that go to the district attorney's office involving juveniles will not even see a courtroom. This is not working. We are here tonight to ask that we get some sort of justice and accountability. CMPD is doing the work arresting the teens. However, the judges and DA's office continue to put the community at risk by not taking crime seriously. As many of you know, we have emailed City Council, the DA's office, CMPD Chief Jennings, Captain Brian Crum, the principal of North Mac High School, among others. The City Council members present tonight, not including newly sworn in City Councilman Peacock, the only one to respond was City Councilwoman Renee Johnson. Minors are not above the law because of their age. Where is Julio? The community has poured in tips, conducted their own community patrols, and placed flyers in various areas. When I asked CMPD if they would hold a press conference to spread the word about Julio, why was I told no? We demand justice for Julio and for Jayla. I asked Representative Johnson of District 4, where the crime occurred, Mayor Lyles, and City Manager Jones to request from CMPD a daily log or report of progress made in Julio's case to ensure that this is not being pushed to the wayside and to guarantee justice and accountability get served. We will not stop until Julio comes home.
All right, our next two speakers are Fred Monday and Michael Roseller. I probably did not do that justice, but please come down and be recognized and help me pronounce your name correctly.
He doesn't have to come down. Is he up there? Yes.
He's up here.
Stay up there.
No, you can stay up there and we'll have it. Wait. There's a mic up there. Yes.
We've done some video asking. Little mic right here, where that camera is and shouldn't be.
Would you like to go first? And then you get settled and get the mic set up and all of that. Thank you for that time. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Michael Rossler. I am a resident of NODA. 2 years ago, a small group of about 20 people from NODA asked the city manager to ban street vendors from the neighborhood by declaring the area a congested business district. In response, more than 1,600 people signed a petition supporting the vendors. The neighborhood's naysayers then dropped their request, but this same small group of people is now asking council to run off our vendors. When these folks, who are mostly white, walk the neighborhood streets, they seemingly don't see the lively, dynamic place the rest of us see, a place made better and brighter and bolder by our street vendors, most of whom are people of color. Instead, they see danger and disorder, lawlessness and violence. The work of regulation is the work of weighing costs and benefits. The naysayers from NODA tell a one-sided tale of exaggerated inconveniences and costs without accounting for real, abundant benefits provided by the street vendors. When examined in their fullness, costs and benefits, the calculus becomes clear. NODA street vendors are a great boon to the community. They help to make the neighborhood a vibrant place unlike any other in Charlotte, the sort of place that draws people to it. In no small part because of these smallest of small businesses. The naysayers are asking you to run off the vendors through regulation, to displace them by regulation. When that request lands on your desks, we ask you to kindly decline the invitation. Thank you.
Mr. Monty, are you all settled?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
My name's Fred Money, and I'm an activist and other things, but this goes back to Bruno Smith. It's going to have to do with the Bruno Smith crime family, mafia-style crime family, and that I was, when Bruno Smith was having trouble about getting his $80 million of Cabarrus County, and went all the way to, ended up going all the way to the Supreme Court of North Carolina, I went out to see him, and we talked for over an hour at his office in Town and Country Ford, that I was capable of getting that money for him, and what arrangements we make. And we entered into a contract that if I could collect the money, I'd get 50%, which is about normal for collections of uncollected money. Since I found out that the money has been paid through different arrangements from Cabarrus County to the state, Iredell County and Mecklenburg County to the city of Charlotte, y'all have got, there's a bunch of YouTube videos of me coming up. It's on YouTube, coming up talking about Bruno Smith, Gonzo Smith, Godfather Bruno Smith, all kinds of things. And they don't want to pay me. And doing this practice of stall delay, hope I die, I'm going away, well, then as on the ship of state, they've actually sold me off into the ocean hoping I'd die. And so they've left me out here, a person on disability, senior on disability, hoping I'd die with COVID, or I'd die from the heat, or I'd die from the freezing cold. And so now we're going into a whistleblower lawsuit that they've stolen this $40 million or plus dollars from me, and I won't pay it. They've laundered it through their organization, which could be Nations Bank. This is a morality clause that NASCAR has, and all the race teams has, and all the dealerships has, that they'll be in violation of this morality clauses. It's in all contracts that there could not be a race in October because Nations Bank might not pull it out, or NASCAR might pull their right to have a race. But it's getting ready to go international on what they call a whistleblower lawsuit that's going to bring in the FBI, the SEC, IRS, probably Homeland Security. There's also going to be the charges of some...
Thank you very much.
Thousands of counts of conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree.
Thank you very much for your remarks, and if you have additional information, feel free to send it to the council.
Well, it'd be up to y'all if y'all want to talk about it. Y'all are the ones that's going to have the economic loss.
Thank you so much, Mr. Monty. All right. Our next two speakers are Ms. White from the Charlotte Museum of History.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm here to request that the 2 requests of the museum for this upcoming fiscal year remain in the budget, and I'll quickly go over them each. One is for operating and one is for a special project. For our operating support, I want you to imagine all of the arts organizations of Charlotte as children in a classroom, and you are the teacher. And in the front row, you have the museums and cultural institutions located in uptown Charlotte. And while they are by no means overfed, they receive a steady diet of support and promotion from the city. But way in the back, in the corner, still doing the work, is the Charlotte Museum of History. And for years, we have sat there without the same support that our peers have enjoyed. We have starved and are getting thinner and thinner while being praised for the work that we do for the community. Each year we ask for support and we are told, oh, next year, next fiscal year. Well, this is my 3rd fiscal year as president. There is no more runway for us to wait while our peers are funded at higher numbers than we have requested. As far as our special project, for decades, people complained that the Charlotte Museum of History was only that colonial history museum that no one thinks about. Despite the fact that we have proven we have grown beyond that subject matter, and this council has itself praised us for our diverse programming and exhibits, and the city has named us its #1 museum, we were shut down for support for our special project in honor of America 250, a geographically exclusive exhibit that we need your support for. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That concludes our public forum at this time, and so we'll go ahead and begin in our business meeting. And the first item, Mr. Manager, do you have any updates for the council?
No, Mayor and members of council, we just have the strategic energy action plan that's before you.
All right. If the council has looked at this, we'll now move on to the first business item for Keep Beautiful, Number 7, which is approve the Transportation Planning and Development Committee's recommendation to adopt the Strategic Energy Action Plan update. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. I believe that's unanimous. Is there anyone that opposes? All right. So the next item is item number, I'm sorry, my notes are running. The next item is item number 8, Keep Charlotte Beautiful Program Contributions. For item number 8, is there a motion to accept contributions in the amount of $42,000 for the Keep Charlotte Beautiful program from the following: Lowe's Home Improvement, $26,000, Keep America Beautiful, $16,000, and adopt the budget ordinance appropriating this $42,000 to the Neighborhood Development Grants Fund.
Move to approve A and B.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? So that's unanimous and will carry through. The next item that we have is item number 9, approve a contract in the amount of $1,200,000 with Habitat for Humanity of the Charlotte region to support the production and sale of affordable home ownership units under the Acquisition, Rehabilitation, and Resale Fund for a term of 1 year, and authorize the city manager to renew the contract for up to 1-year term and to amend the contract consistent with the purpose for which the contract has been approved. Do we have a motion?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to ask Mr. Manager, are there opportunities for small
Okay, so we will continue to keep an eye on all three of our feeds here. Of course, we are very attuned to these protests underway in Seattle. Like we mentioned here on Live Impact News, if we start to see a reporter coming in front of the camera to give updates, we are going to go there in full. If we start to see any major developments like we just saw several moments ago, an arrest made live here on Live Impact News, we'll pop back there in full. Of course, keeping an eye on Charlotte City Council. And then our top right box, the view cam, which is actually in uptown Charlotte. It's hard to tell. There's actually a skyline there, but we're essentially in a cloud at this point, and our weather impact team is warning us that we could have some overnight rain. So more on all three of those items to come, but we wanted to dive back into public commentary that we just heard just a bit ago in the Charlotte City Council meeting. We heard some very impassioned folks, including the mother of a stolen French bulldog, Jayla Gittens, speaking about her concerns not only with the situation itself, but also, she says, some of the shortcomings that she saw on the criminal justice side, if you will, because some of the folks accused in the theft of her dog are minors. And we heard another community member, Amanda O'Hara, speaking on that matter as well. We wanted to get a little bit more context for you all, and this is coming amid not just these community concerns, but we've heard from some law enforcement in our area that they are having some of their requests to detain youth offenders being rejected, and they say that's leading to multiple offenders, repeating over and over while they're awaiting court dates. So we sat down with an advocate for basically folks who are trying to recover from youth crime, if you will, to kind of get his take. And quite frankly, he said in some situations, the young people are gaming the system. Those are his words. So we want to take you now to our extended interview with Daryl Bago with Youth Development Initiatives. Well, we wanted to bring in some more perspective on this youth crime dialogue that we're having in our community right now. We wanted to bring in Daryl Bago with Youth Development Initiatives, and this is a group that works closely with kids who are at risk. And Daryl, you have so much perspective on how to turn these kids' lives around. We just wanted to speak with you about some of the, threads, if you will, for this very layered and very complicated issue that we're seeing in our community. So just first of all, I'd like to give folks a little bit of a background on Youth Development Initiatives, because I understand you do work with many kids, including kids who are referred to you by the juvenile justice system, right?
Yeah, absolutely. YDI is a program that's been around. We're going on our 20th year, but a lot of people haven't heard as much about us because we've really been on the front lines at the ground and grassroots levels, really deriving data. And so now that message is getting out, which is why Vanessa, you guys know about us. And we're now seeing some key ways that we can make a difference with all at-risk youth and even those who are involved with juvenile justice.
I mean, one of the big dialogues that we're seeing is coming mainly, we're seeing from law enforcement departments. So, for example, CMPD, we've heard some discussion, from Rowan Sheriff in the wake of there was a fight amongst youth over at the Cheerwine Festival that resulted in some law enforcement officers getting hurt. But, I mean, there have been some points raised by law enforcement that sometimes when they end up charging a minor, let's say for a crime, they try to get what's called secured custody orders. And in a lot of cases, we're hearing from police, those custody orders are denied, and the child inevitably gets released to the parents. And in some cases, we see the kids go back out while they're still waiting for, let's just say, a court date for the first crime, and they're out committing other crimes. And I guess, what is your perspective on that? Because it feels like this is a delicate balance between wanting to maybe not initially lock up a child, if you will, but also trying to make sure that the community is safe in the meantime.
Yeah, well, the dichotomy going on with that, Vanessa, because one, the kids are gaming the system. I mean, they know the law sometimes better than some of us. And the second of all is guidance, that will steer them away to alternatives to violence and crime and so forth and so on. And so, as they're waiting, they feel like they're going to potentially get just a hand slap. So they feel like they're underage and they're not going to be referred to adult court. So they continue on with the same behavior. So what we have to do is really provide comprehensive programming that's collaborative, that really centers around the research that's out there, such as mental health, academic enrichment. But a big one is employability skills, because adolescent brain development shows that these kids at the age of 14 to 16 is in the highest risk-taking phase. If there's not alternatives that center around, for example, educational attainment and employability, then they are really led to alternatives, which is crime and violence.
Now, through your program, we've seen in some cases you'll work with these kids, you'll learn kind of what sparks their passions, you'll deal with them in ways where they learn how to express their emotions in a healthy way, to even talk about their emotions, which it sounds like in some cases these kids are not even equipped. They've never been taught how to express themselves, and so we see some of that work with your programs. Can you talk about some of the ways that you work with these kids and how you see that improving their futures?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that really is a deficiency amongst our kids is their ability to express themselves positively and kind of in a planning type manner. We do something called biosketching, where we really address the kids' deficiencies relative to like maybe adverse childhood experiences and things that are kind of guiding their mindset toward negativity in the present. So we kind of go back, and then through our relationship building, we build trust. And one of the things that we're seeking to accomplish, first of all, is to build self-awareness in them. So we'll take assessments that are very subjective, because we want them to be the primary architects of their own future, so that they understand self-efficacy. And so by the time that we're done with them, our kids can answer 3 core questions. Who am I? What do I want in life, and how do I go about it? So by taking them through that developmental process where they're the focus of it, it's amazing how they begin to attribute the fact that if it is to be, it is up to me. They have to move forward. But it takes intentional effort to do that and to engage them in communication that centers around them, so that they feel that there's a support element and some structure around them building the skill sets that they need to make that future a possibility.
Yeah, and I feel like one of the things that you've mentioned before, maybe in the context of, trying to keep youth out of gangs or remove them from gang ties, if you will, the fact that it's important to give them connections outside of that, give them ways to maybe even just make money if that's what they're looking to do outside of, a gang lifestyle, if you will.
Yeah, well, employment is addresses a tangible need, and that is some of these kids are the poorest kids and most vulnerable kids in our community, and so sometimes they have shame, and they have some issues around the fact that they can't purchase or have their most basic needs covered. For example, like 80-90% of our kids, their only meal that they get beyond high school, when they leave school, is our program. So we have to feed them. So that's a tangible need. Well, if they have funding, they can not only pay for things themselves, but they also can contribute to the budget or the finances of the household, which is a key thing, and most of them are willing to do it. And what we have found, Vanessa, is that they will take on a legitimate opportunity that pays less than crime if it's given to them strategically in a structured way, that where they feel like they can gain the dignity without all of the rigmarole of juvenile crime. But it needs to be intentional, and it needs to be skill-based, and it needs to be comprehensive.
I wanted to talk about a recent case that has really brought youth crime to the forefront for the Charlotte community, and I explained a bit about this to you when we were speaking offline, but the fact that there was a young woman who was moving out of her apartment complex back in April. She had her car loaded up with some of her moving boxes and her dog Julio, and someone, while she turned around to basically grab more boxes to load up, someone jumped into her car and drove away with that vehicle with her dog inside, and there was a bit of investigation. The car was eventually found. A couple of minors, were told, were charged with the actual theft of the car. And just recently, the mother of one of the juveniles has been arrested for basically having stolen property. We presume this to include the dog Julio, who actually is still missing. And people are very, very upset with this situation in the community. I think based, obviously on the heartbreak that they understand this young woman going through not being able to get her dog back, but also just the frustration that they feel like law enforcement is obviously sniffing down the right path, but for some reason can't make folks tell them where this dog is. And I mean, you know, as far as you know, that element of the youth crime and potentially having a parent involved, I'm just curious on your take on, like, how can you get kids and parents equally involved in you know, I don't want to say like the emotional recovery process here, but I mean, it is drawing some questions from the community about parental involvement, I guess, in this particular case.
Yeah, well, one issue that's growing even more concerning in Charlotte, Mecklenburg, is the fact that you have an increasing number of parents who are unwilling and unable to kind of provide guidance and advisory or supervisory for their kids. And a lot of that has to do with natural brain development, because this is a phase of life where a lot of these teenagers between 13 and 17 are kind of pushing away from their parents, which is natural, you know, in them trying to gain their independence. But at the same time, it's really frustrating for the parents because there's not a lot of alternatives in the community that's going to point them back to the positive values of the positive parents. Now, make no bones about it, there are some parents who are just negligent. I mean, they need to be held accountable for some of the deeds that their kids perpetrate because of their unwillingness to apply discipline or to be involved. But I'm finding there's a lion's share of parents who want to do better or want to help their kids, which is why we have a Family Life Skills Academy program to kind of reinstate that relationship component and equip the parents with the tools so that they can better communicate with the kid. But think about it, a lot of parents can't help their kids get somewhere they've never been. So if the parents are undereducated and underemployed, they feel like they're not equipped to really guide their students. And so they're relying on external factors that aren't there, unfortunately, to support their kids. So that's a big deal, is that really bringing parents of adolescent kids closer together, because we've also noticed in many times they both have the same deficiencies. So by serving them both collectively as well as individually, so that they build those relationships where parents can be better accountability partners, advisors, as well as advocates, then I think we will see some of these things change and some of these things turn.
What would you say to the community who's watching this right now about how they can best get involved, how they could best tackle this issue if they feel like this is something that is important to them and they want to be part of a solution?
Yeah, get involved. I mean, get involved, mentor. Get involved by providing support of your time, talent, and treasures in terms of helping these young people, because they're at a phase of life, not only, as I mentioned, is a highest risk-taking phase, but they're at a phase of life that many of these kids who are committing these crimes need what's called a parafamilial relationship. That means a relationship outside of family temporarily until the parents can be reacquainted with their teenagers, because their teenagers may not listen to them right now, but they'll listen to another caring adult in a structured environment that's going to help provide support and guidance to aspirations that they've suddenly found themselves have, which is going to help reconnect them to the classroom, reconnect them to the community and or college, the workforce, or the military. And so that's where structured mentoring is really important, but you have to have volunteers. The kids need to see that the community is engaged and that the community values them becoming constructive and positive influences and impactors in the community by getting involved in meaningful and measurable ways.
Daryl, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. We hope to have you back here on Live Impact News.
My pleasure. Hey, we can do this, community. We can do
Fabulous. Absolutely, absolutely. And we'll have you back on to chat again sometime soon. We'll remind folks at home, youth development initiatives, you can actually learn more about the organization which Daryl founded on our website, WCNC.com, and inside the WCNC Charlotte mobile app. We've been proud to profile some of the work that you've done and some of the success stories, too, with some of these kids. So that's been really great to see, Daryl.
Well, thank you for the support, and we appreciate it. I'm available anytime to help out.
All right. Thank you, and take care.
Right.
All right, we'll stop the recording here. Okay, so of course, folks,
All
we're
right.
just wrapping up that interview with youth development initiatives, obviously weighing in a big topic for our area, youth crime, and how could folks seek solutions to this issue. Of course, more to come on this dialogue. We continue to bring on stakeholders here on Live Impact News, and we do want to make sure that we're contributing positively and constructively to the conversation. So just another layer of insight to share on that front. Okay, so with that, we want to turn back to Charlotte City Council because much more being discussed tonight. And keep in mind, we may dip back in with Seattle. We've got some live feeds we continue to watch of protests out there. On the weather front, we're watching a bit of a haze moving over the uptown skyline as we are expecting overnight rain, and watching feeds elsewhere in the nation. So with that, Live Impact News is going to bring you back to our coverage of Charlotte City Council and some items that are being discussed.
And we've become, as a council, almost, I mean, I know there's a need for working class individuals. This is better than the $1,700 to $2,200. But again, with public dollars, I think we need to serve those who truly need funding. So I won't be supporting this. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Molina.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So before we go too far off, this is actually an existing property. This property is standing. Council member LaWanna Mayfield and I were at the ribbon cutting, and people live there. So this isn't to like approve something that's not already standing. This is actually to extend the benefit that's already in place. This is already an affordable housing unit, and it's walking distance. Literally, the Eastland property is across the street. So we have people who are at 50, 60, and 70% AMI that before Eastland and the 30-acre property and the mixed-use developments and the 5-acre park are going to be able to walk across the street to one of our most substantial economic drivers in the entire East Charlotte fabric. So we can't lose that, and just because the 30% bracket is not covered in this project, we can't lose focus of the fact that 50, 70, or 50, 60, and 70 are right there, and all of these projects, the majority of these projects are actually income reserved. They're protected. So the entire unit is already an affordable housing unit. The purpose of this particular funding opportunity is what we call post-construction, which is something that's new, where the city actually allows them to extend the benefit, and they borrow the money and then they pay it back with interest. That's literally what this is. So I know that we do have a lot of our community members that work in a subcontract form for the airport that are here, that are speaking about wages, and that is something that I can only speak for myself, in that that's not lost on me, and I would assume none of the people who live here. So I don't want that particular subject matter to be attached to something that is for the benefit and the greater good of community members. And so with that being said, Ms. Hefner, will you please explain what this particular item is so that it's not lost in translation, please?
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Molina. This is a pilot that we are advancing to test out a post-construction bridge loan. So your Housing Trust Fund provides gap financing, but for financing for construction. And it has always done that heavy lifting. Several years ago, you all had an opportunity before you to use Housing Trust Fund dollars to provide post-construction bridge loan, and declined that opportunity. But what that opportunity gave us was a chance to see that there are needs for affordable housing funding along the development cycle. So there's pre-development, land acquisition, construction financing, and then post-construction, either lease up or stabilization. And so This is an opportunity to test out a post-construction loan. It's $1 million of your home funding, so your federal home allocation. It does not impact your housing trust fund balance. And yes, this is an already constructed low-income housing tax credit development off of Albemarle, right there where Central comes across from the Eastland redevelopment. And the developer has an opportunity to leverage this $1 million into a very low interest loan from HUD that will help them reach their stabilization phase more quickly. The benefit to the city is that the developer has agreed to two things. One, to extend the affordability period an additional 10 years. So currently it's at 40 per the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency, and they've agreed to extend to 40 years. And they've also agreed to set aside 19 units for vulnerable populations according to your affordable housing funding policy. And in addition, they will be paying this bridge loan back over a period of 7 years at 3% interest to the city. Those funds then come back into your housing development fund, and you can recycle them and reallocate them according to the guidelines of the Home Fund program. We have had some challenges leveraging home dollars for multifamily development, and we think that a post-construction opportunity will actually make it easier for developers to leverage our federal funds and also to bring additional program income back into your housing development fund for future allocation.
Thank you, Ms. Hefner. So with that being said, and I just want to make sure that that part is not lost in translation, this isn't free money to an existing person post-development. This is a loan where they pay the city back with interest, and then we take that money and we recycle it from a federal program and use it to continue to create affordable housing. And
you only got 3%. Can a regular home buyer buy a home for 3%?
so it's not buying a home, ma'am, it's renting. And you can't have a back and forth conversation with me.
Yes.
Unfortunately, you can't at this moment because you haven't been recognized at the podium. No offense to you, but that's just not. So I just want to make sure that I put that part out there so that it's not lost in translation. And also 50% AMI, how much is that as far as earning is concerned, Ms. Hefner?
So 50% is about $60,000 for a family of four. Our current AMI in Charlotte is $112,000.
So the current AMI for our city is $112,000, and this is with a family of four, they can live here making $60,000.
Yes.
Combined income, that's everyone in the household. And 60% AMI is somewhere in that ballpark, how much?
Yeah.
I mean, I know those figures are exact, but what I'm trying to do is paint a picture, again, so that it's not lost in translation, what's already been done and what the purpose of this particular item means. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. We have a motion on the floor.
I have a question.
Oh, Ms. Brown.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So I wanted to ask, I heard Councilmember Molina getting the explanation to it, so it's already standing?
It is.
Meaning that community is already filled? I just need a little bit more details on that. So it's already standing, the community is already there, the development is already there in the community?
Yes,
That's my understanding.
It literally, if you're going down Albemarle Road at the corner of Central and Albemarle, it's a development that's right there at the foot of those two where the corridors meet, and it's already standing, it's already existing. This is what you call post-construction. So it's already constructed, humans already live there. This is post-construction for them to extend the existing affordability for the people who are going to reside there. And then they pay us the money back.
But you're saying, but they need $60,000 for a family of four?
No, so this is, see how it says here, the 30 units would serve 50% AMI? So a family of four making $60,000 could live in these units. That's everybody in the house included making $60,000 combined could actually live in these units. And our average income is what Ms. Hefner said. 112,000 is the average for our city. So it's less than half of the average of the humans that live in our city can actually afford to live in these units already before we extend any dollars to them at all.
And here are the rents.
Okay.
That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
I was wondering if Ms. Brown had any.
I don't have any more questions.
All right, thank you very much. So we have a motion on the floor. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? We'll have Ms. Brown and Ms. Johnson in opposition. But before we go on, I just want to make a note that in the last 3 items, this council has placed almost $2 million from the voters that supported affordable housing. And so we are working hard to deliver the various types, and I have to just say a lot has been done by Ms. Mayfield and Ms. Watlington to make this discussion a lot easier for us as we continue how we can address housing and homelessness in our city. So thank you very much to the voters that allow us to be in this position to have these kinds of conversations. All right, so the next item that we have are the, I believe there's an appointment to the approval of the Housing Trust Fund for the Haven Ridge at Sharon Amity. That was deferred. And that's going to be the deferred. We have this item. The next item is 11 has been deferred by the staff. It'll come back on the agenda at some point, I guess. Okay. So that's item 11. And so if we'll go to item 12, adopt a resolution approving a lease agreement with Envision Charlotte for the lease of city-owned property at Siegel Avenue.
In Livingston, you mean?
I'm sorry.
We're on 12?
We're on 12,
Okay.
lease of city-owned property on Siegel Avenue.
Okay.
Adopt a resolution approving a lease agreement with Envision Charlotte for the lease of the city-owned property as noted on Siegel Avenue, and authorize the manager to negotiate and execute all documents necessary to complete this transaction and lease agreement consistent with the intent.
Move to adopt A and B, Madam Mayor.
We have a motion and a second on item A and B. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, we have discussion. Ms. Johnson?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to lift up the work that they're doing at the Innovation Barn. They are kind of a incubator, if you will, for small businesses. There's an ecosystem for organizations like The Bulb and Waxhaw Worm and Power Up USA. So I will be supporting this. I've also asked the manager, and we have a copy of the other city-owned properties where organizations have the opportunity for a discounted rent. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. So any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed? So the motion carries. So that lends us, I think, to the end of our business meeting on this portion, but we now have appointments to the Firefighters Relief Fund Board of Trustees. I think tonight we have this appointment. The council members have already voted and turned in their votes to the clerk, and so the clerk knows the rules better than I do, so we'll have Ms. Stephanie to talk to us about what the results are for the Firefighters Relief Fund Board of Trustees.
Mayor and council, Chris Formidable has been appointed to this position.
Could you put on record that I did not vote? I did not cast my vote? It's fine, but I just wanted on record that I did not. Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Mayfield, did you have a question?
There's Amy, right there. On this, or, no, I do have something I would like to mention before we go, if we go into a closed session.
We are going to go into a closed session.
Okay, so now.
And so right now.
But I think there was a question regarding everyone not turning in their ballots.
Yeah, she answered that question. I have also another question after you, Councilmember Mayfield.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Brown. Madam Mayor, thank you for a moment. I would like for us to pause with everything that's going on. I appreciate the fact that I had a chance to read the proclamation announcing our Clerks Month. But I want to take a moment because two big things have happened recently regarding our city clerk for the city of Charlotte. One, I want to congratulate Ms. Stephanie Kelly because she received the 2025 IMMC Quill Award, of which that is the highest honor award that you can receive as a clerk across the nation. You are our international president, so this is an award of her peers, but this is the highest award that you can receive for city clerks, the Quill Award, as well as she received the 2025 Program Excellence in Governance Award for the introduction of innovative customer service, and she received that as our municipal clerk because of the work that she's done with our passport office. So don't take that for granted that we have a passport office in the city. A lot of communities do not. So I wanted to have a moment for us to congratulate and recognize Ms. Stephanie Kelly. And to be able to publicly thank you for how you represent the city of Charlotte, not just domestically, but also internationally, and the highlight that you keep on our city and the work that you do. So I appreciate, Mayor, you giving me that chance just to highlight, because I was able to steal a copy of the video of her award speech, and I shared that personally, but I wanted to use this moment for us to just
A quick pivot, folks, here as we have a breaking new feed coming into the Live Impact News studio. We're getting some aerial images from the Stanislaus State campus. This is in Turlock, California, so just to the east of San Jose, approximately. But this is a situation where the campus is on lockdown. We're getting a few details here about the situation. It sounds like this is out of an abundance of caution that this lockdown is underway, and reports that there might have been a man dressed all in black with a backpack, reportedly with a firearm there on campus. We have not gotten any reports of shots being fired, no reports of injuries. As we mentioned, this seems to be a lockdown purely out of an abundance of caution. As you could see, some of our live images showing a very quiet campus, and we do see some emergency vehicles there parked in the roadway. There was an alert apparently set out to students advising them to shelter in place. At this point, we're hearing officers are sweeping the buildings on the campus where that person, that man in black with the backpack and the firearm reportedly was seen, and police in Turlock are asking folks to avoid the area. So that's the situation as we see it at this point. As you can see, campus looking very quiet as this lockdown has been put into place and a shelter in place being alerted to students there. You can see as the aerials here kind of tighten in on some of the patrol cars, looks like a lot of police officers are there. And we'll just remind you once again that we have not gotten any reports of shots fired or any injuries. We will continue to keep an eye on this feed. Looks like, you know, as the helicopter moves around the campus, they're kind of getting different vantage points showing the lockdown in place. Looks like we're seeing, probably by our counts at this point, close to about a dozen law enforcement vehicles. And I'm sure there are more out there too, but as we see the camera panning around, those were the counts that we were seeing. So once again, Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, bringing you live aerials from California, where we have in Turlock, California, reports of this lockdown of Stanislaus State campus. Man dressed in black, reportedly with a backpack and a firearm. No shots fired, no reports of injuries. We're going to keep this up for you as we move back to our 3-box and just let you know that we've got as well the live feed we're monitoring out of downtown Seattle, where protests are underway. We did see, unfortunately, some of these protests over the weekend turn violent. We also have seen some arrests happening here tonight, live on Live Impact News. And listening in full with our audio, we'll have continued coverage here of the Charlotte City Council meeting and a new item that they've moved on to here with the Firefighters Relief Fund.
When we had a closed session meeting a couple of weeks ago prior to me getting sick, I left. The way our system is set up, because of North Carolina General Assembly legislative language, I must ask my colleagues to be recused in order to not be present at a closed session meeting. I have concerns regarding our closed session meetings because quite a few of those meetings, honestly, before we even leave the meeting, the information has been shared with the media, which is in direct opposition of the oath, one of the oaths that we take, but also legislative policy. Mr. Fox, I need to get an understanding of what is the process for there to be any research on what ability or inability we have. Let's say we announce from this dais that we're getting ready to go into closed session. If I was to say, okay, clerk, go ahead and put me down as a no because I'm not going to be attending this closed session. I don't know if I would be able to do that because the way that our policy language is written, you must be in attendance. If you are not in attendance, then that is an automatic yes vote. What do you need in order for you to move forward to, one, do an investigation and or identify, can there be language to say no cell phones, no smartphones, no nothing in our closed session, so that we can have a meeting that doesn't be reported to the media immediately afterwards, because there are a lot of important discussions that we have, and the information is going to be released through the clerk's office after decision anyway. Or is that something that I can request, or is that something that has to come from as a council vote with majority? What does that look like?
Councilmember Mayfield, there are several questions that you have raised in your address. First of all, you're correct. It's a product of the state law that provides that if a member who attends a meeting leaves that meeting, that member is counted in the affirmative as a vote when they are not excused from that meeting. The law provides that you are excused when you can demonstrate to the council that you have a financial or pecuniary interest in the matter. Absent that, your colleagues should not technically allow one to be excused. So your ability to announce that you are no vote and not attend a closed session meeting would not have the weight that you would like for it to have, because your vote would be counted in the affirmative. Now, with regards to closed session, Councilmember Wallerton has raised a question that office is looking at about a bifurcated approach to the meeting, where you have a separate notice of the closed session as well as the business meeting, and we are evaluating that option. There are some hurdles to that, but we're looking to respond to that. With regards to
All right, folks, our time here on Live Impact News is coming to a close soon. We thank you for staying tuned with us, and we'll just remind you, coming up at 11 o'clock, we'll have our late evening newscast here on WCNC Plus, so keep it here for the next couple of hours of programming. Of course, we'll have the very latest on some of the Charlotte City Council items that were discussed, some of the public commentary, and we'll have a look at your weather. Of course, it's going to be rainy overnight, so stay tuned for that forecast as well with Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich. Have a great evening.